Oh, howdy, y'all. Got me reading Curb Critters, the zine. Hey, welcome to episode 30. It's featuring the Ohio player, Curb Critter himself, Lee LOVAAS, Three Finger Lee. Enjoy.
All right, everybody, welcome back again. This is MONGOCHATTER skateboarding podcast, video zine type thing, episode number 30 right here.
30.
Yeah, number 30. And we got Lee LOVAAS, aka Three Finger Lee, aka the evil mastermind behind Curb Critters. And I'm here finally down in San Antonio, Texas, sitting next to, live in person, my co-host, Captain Simon, Captain Curb Payne. And Lee, what's going on, man? How you living?
I'm pretty good. We're just, settling into the middle of fall here in Seattle, or, parking garage season, I guess you'd say. You guys both know because you guys spent some time here. So,
yeah.
But yeah, just that. And, I do landscaping and work at the skate shop. So
You at 85th or downtown?
I do both. I work 85th on the weekends, and then I do downtown. I fill in shifts for people.
Cool.
At the downtown one, which is a little more fun. There's the little thing outside to skate, at least,
Yeah. What's your garage of choice? Speaking of garages.
I don't know. It's probably the C5 or C5, or there's a couple other ones. There's one on Pacific, I think, that's okay.
Yeah.
And then there's other random covered spots, you know how it is. You find there's some good stuff over in Northgate.
Yeah,
Northgate's got a good one. Yeah, and the light rail goes there now. It goes all the way to Northgate. That's the last stop.
Oh, they finished that.
So, yeah. So that's cool.
You always got kicked out of there. You never get kicked out of the Northgate one? Didn't you always get kicked out of there? I always pretty quickly, yeah.
I was a janitor there for some time, so I might know a couple of the security guards,
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I worked in that mall third shift. I would come in and clean the floors like late at night at like third shift, and when the mall was closing, I would come in and start my shift, stay there till like 5 a.m.
And go skate in the parking garage after?
Yeah. Sometimes I definitely would. And then a couple of the security guards that work there when I did skated as well. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with the light rail out there, is there a ton of spots kind of creeping up in Northgate?
I mean, there's always been like, I feel like I've always like kind of seen some spots out there, there's some curb spots around the mall and the park and ride. And
the park and ride had those red curbs that I remember. The Manning pad.
Manual pad.
Yeah. So you're originally from Ohio?
I'm originally from like east of Cincinnati, at like a little suburb called Milford. There's a pretty decent skate scene there. Like one of the dudes that I grew up with, he went pro for Creation, and then he rides for Politics skateboards now. But and then later on, like in like 5th or 6th grade, I met this kid, and he was like, my uncle used to work at Tracker Skateboards, and I was like, Tracker's a truck company, but, and then later on, he brought in some skateboards, and they were GSD models. It was actually the one that's hanging behind me there, one of them.
So Tracker was in fact making boards?
Yeah, and his uncle was like, did ride for them They had like a pretty sick team, like Lester
I remember that.
Kasai and
Yeah.
Dan Wilkes
Yeah.
and GSD. Now that was my friend's uncle.
Oh,
So
wow.
so I met him like fairly early on.
Your friend
so-
uncle was Gary Scott Davis?
Yeah,
Radical.
yeah.
That's rad.
So yeah, it was pretty sick. Like we grew up skating the banks that he skated. Like it's still a spot to this very day.
Does that mean that the boneless was invented in Ohio?
It was invented at the doctor's office banks, the
Really?
Dios banks. Yeah.
Oh, rad.
Yes, which is still a spot. Like it's still like people are still skating it to this very day. Like, and I think they skated it probably since like the late 70s. See, GSD was credited for like inventing the boneless one, but the first guy to actually pull the boneless one was a dude by the name of Mark Mounts, and he was a friend of GSD's. There was like 3 or 4 dudes, right? And they used to do they used to do front side foot plants, but it was with the back foot. It's basically a fast plant.
Yeah.
And like they were thinking like, oh, well, you could probably boost it if you did it off the front foot, you know? And so these dudes, you know, they came up with this thing, but none of them had done it yet. And then I think it was like New Year's Day, I forget what year, Mark Mounts was the first one to do it. And they named it the boneless one after a puppet. It was a puppet that one of the guys had, and it was Harry the boneless one, you know, because he didn't have any bones until you put your hand in him.
Yeah.
But that's
Skate history.
yeah,
That is
Definitely.
good skate history right there. That's rad.
yeah.
Wow. The first boneless I saw was I assume it was in Thrasher, and it was Mark Gonzalez like leaping from like building to building. I was like, wow, only Batman does that, you know? And I was like,
Yeah.
you can do that with a skateboard, and since then it's been sort of my trick, though I struggled to land one today, but
You did one today.
yeah.
It's crazy to see like what people have done with that trick, you know, like they've taken it to handrails. Like I've
Yeah.
seen people do it like down, you know, to grind down handrails, or like the blunt slide down handrails, or like some of the stuff that kids boneless over, you know, or down is just insane.
I see
So
more
I don't know.
bonuses now too. Like kids, I think kids are rediscovering the boneless. Like I see them.
Yeah.
I see kids trying to do backside bonuses, like back into balls and stuff, which is so gnarly. But it's awesome.
Backside
like,
ones.
like young people registering that this trick, even though it's old from the 80s, but it's gnarly enough to like.
Yeah, the backside ones are insane looking. I can't comprehend. My
Yeah.
body doesn't bend like that anymore, especially anymore. But
Yeah.
even when I was younger, I just couldn't understand it.
I feel
But,
like it's part of the key might be the backside sweeper. And if you start grabbing the backside sweeper kind of like indie, and then you can
Yeah.
kind of get a sense of like, oh, if I just kind of move, if I somehow got my back foot behind my body, you know what I mean? Like this could work
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
But I don't commit to that
And
shit.
then leap into a ball and land on your skateboard. Yeah.
Yeah, and then leaving back,
Yeah.
that backwards like thing just is weird.
Yeah.
Grabbing behind me just doesn't.
Yeah.
know?
Sure.
And I don't know. I'm also kind of limited as well to like which way I can grab certain things. If you notice, like if you watch like my Instagram, like I do a lot of crail grabs, and like I like grab with my right hand more than my left hand. You know, it's just like out of necessity probably, but
Sure.
there's certain things like I want to do layback airs, you know, but it's like I got to grab with the front hand, you know, and it's like it's just weird, you know, grabbing.
Sure.
I grab everything with this hand. So
Yeah.
So forgive me.
that's a whole another story.
And if you don't want to, I don't mean to be like two barrels blazing or whatever, but forgive me if this is like harsh, but were you born like that with your hand like that, or
No, don't feel weird about asking about that. I feel like that's like my, you know, like that's what people know me
Yeah, that's
for,
your handle.
like they
Your
remember
name.
that, but but so when I was born, like my fingers were like fused together. So I had like, it was basically like these two were together, and then
Okay.
I had them separated. And then on this hand, these two were together and they separated them. But I had to have a bunch of surgeries to like have them straightened.
Oh
Like what
wow.
I have now, I mean, they look crazy and mangled, but like before they were even gnarlier. So like this is like a lot. Like I don't even know how many surgeries, but a lot. And they, skin grafts, and
Yeah, yeah.
had like pins in my fingers and screws and all kinds of stuff. And then that, like, this is like what people can see, but I do a pretty good job at like concealing my left leg is like, I don't know, like 4, 3, 3. I don't even know. I've never measured it, but it's like a lot shorter than my right leg, and I wear a thing inside my shoe.
Oh wow.
It's like, yeah, and like when people find out about that, they're like, I don't even understand. Like they just like can't. They're like, wait, like you were just doing, whatever. And I'm like, well, that's how I learned how to do it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
So with all
but
that going on, the surgeries and stuff, was that at a very young age, or like when did skateboarding come into play as far as that process of like body work and stuff?
so I had like surgeries on my hands fairly young. But I got my my best friend's older brother was a skater, and this was like the late '80s. He, I think, maybe gave us one of his hand-me-down boards or something. So we were like sharing a board, and then like, oh, check out this movie Thrashing, and I was like probably 9. Yeah, probably like '89. We started messing around on the board that he gave us, and then I think we were watching Thrashing, and like got real stoked on skating. I remember like before we even got to skateboard, like going to school and telling people like I'm a skateboarder, and they were like, "Yeah, right. Like you, like you're not a skateboarder or whatever." And then then I think I just rode hand me down stuff. Probably, I think I got a Veriflex, and then I think it was like the Christmas of 1990. I think I got a Ray Barbie. I got to go to the like bike shop and pick out like a full complete. So I like remember exactly what it was, like the Ray Barbie board with I had neon green grip and like Indy trucks with bridge bolts and
Oh yeah, bridge
like
balls.
red mini rat wheels with like the cell block 3 or whatever it was, risers,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Cell
like
block.
the whole full setup. And then like I remember like I was the only dude that had bright neon green grip tape, and everyone else had like full covered black, or
Yeah,
whatever. And
black.
I was like super bummed that I did that.
Oh, really? I bet people thought it
Yeah,
was sick,
yeah, because
though.
I wanted, I didn't like, it was like I had this green grip tape, and everybody else had like
Yeah.
their black grip, and I was like, oh, dude, I like blew it,
I blew it, yeah. I know what you're saying.
What was it?
But
What was it about thrashing? Was it like the daggers vibe, or what? Like what was it that like
it
sparked?
was
Because that was a
it
huge
was
movie
just
for me too. Like, and I'm
it
just
was
curious.
just that I was skateboarding. Like I just identified with both. You know what I mean? Like I was
Yeah.
like, that's it. That's like they were both cool. Like both sides. Like I don't know. Like me and my friend would be like, well, would you be like a Val dude, or would you be a Dagger? And it's like, oh, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
Like oh, I don't know. Like, but I just want to be like one of them. You know what I mean?
One of them,
I know
yeah.
that they're both cool.
Yeah.
Like watching that was just like, okay, California is like, I have to go there someday, Like I just remember being like young and like being like, oh, like skateboarding's like California, like that's where, it's where it's like at, I guess. And then we started seeing like spots where you wanted to go, like Embarcadero, and that was, of course, that's later on, you know, that's years later. But like he gave us like a stack of magazines, and so we had like a pretty good into like skateboarding. There was a little community in that town that I lived in where there were more skateboarders. But I mean, I started out like riding, like kneeboarding, you know, like we kneeboarded around the neighborhood for like a month or something, you know.
Yeah.
And then butt boarding down the biggest hill in the neighborhood, and then like finally like standing up and bombing the hill, you know, or whatever, eating it at the bottom. Like one of the first toy store boards I got, my dad we went to this hill in my aunt's neighborhood, and my dad like stood up on the board and rode it down the hill and made it to the very bottom and then just ate it.
Your dad?
You know?
Did your dad skate?
Yeah.
Oh.
No.
Oh, he was
No,
just sending it?
He was just like, yeah, like, you know, like, I'm going to try this thing, or I don't know if he was trying to impress me or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, he made it all the way to the bottom of the hill and then just ate it, you know, he didn't know how to stop. Yeah. He definitely got speed wobbles, but I didn't know what speed wobbles were at the time. Like, I mean, this was like probably the first toy store board that I got. It was just like a yellow board. It said concave on the top, and I had like a picture of Bill the cat on it, and he looked all like disoriented. I found them on eBay. I want to get one just because I'm a nerd like that, but I also don't want to spend like a couple $100 on like a generic skateboard.
Yeah. Sick. My dad stood on a board one time. My dad's like very like stick and ball kind of sports dude, and like I think he was just kind of like, let me fucking stand on this thing, and he just went boom and fell right on his ass, and like I don't know if that gave him any like more respect or like a certain hatred for skateboarding, you know what I mean? But but he wasn't into the culture or any of that, that's for sure. He was not down with like where I was headed, I guess, you know.
My dad's always like, even now I'm 49 years old, my dad's like, so what do you do for exercise? Play tennis? I'm like, no, I still skateboard. And then he'll go, no, I mean, what do you do for exercise? Like, he's just like, he still hasn't accepted it. Like, you know, whatever age he is, it's like, it's not, you're still a kid playing with a toy.
Yep. I remember having like relatives that would be like, oh, but here's what's going to happen. Because I'd be like, oh, I'm going to skateboard forever, you know, and they'd be like, here's what's going to happen, you know. You're going to turn 16. You're going to get your driver's license. You're never going to touch that thing again.
Yeah.
It's like a yo-yo or like
a yo-yo,
you know. And I'm like, nah, it's more than that. Like, I'm telling them, like, you can like go pro, like you can be professional, you know. They're like, whatever, you kid, you know.
I feel like when I was a kid, when an adult would tell me stuff like that, because I think the rebellious side of me would be like, I'll show you. Like, no, I'm not going to give this thing up. So I remember like seeing like punk rockers in the mall, and my dad telling me like, you will never look like that, you know. And at the time I was like, no, of course, Dad. And then, you know, by the time I was, I don't know, 18 or something, like leopard print sides and mohawk, I was like, and it really was like, and he told me that when I was like 13 or 14, you know what I mean? It's still stuck in my head. Like, I'm going to show you. Like, I mean, I was legitimately into punk rock, but I also like, I think there was a slight bit there. Like, I'll show you. Right? You don't tell me that I'm never going to look like this. You know what I mean? And I think the same with skateboarding. Like, don't tell me I'm going to give this thing up, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's crazy because it's like, like the amount, like just everything, like everyone I know I met through the skateboard, you know, or like when I go to both of my jobs, it's like with other skateboarders. Like I work with skateboarders at my landscaping job, and then I work at the skate shop. So it's like pretty much everyone that I'm, you know, that I interact with on a daily basis, like is a skateboarder.
I know exactly what you're saying. We were just talking to someone last night, and I was like, man, when I was in Seattle, especially, it was like so many jobs and places to live came from skating to Ballard Bowl. You know what I mean? Just meeting people there and being like, oh, fucking, you need a place to stay, dude? I got you. Did it? And it was like, you know, people don't really have that if they, I don't know. Maybe stamp collectors have that kind of community too, but I feel like skating is definitely really special. We always say it all the time. We're all like, oh, skating's special, but it really fucking is, you know?
Skating rules. I have a pretty interesting story. Like one time I went to Skatopia. You guys were familiar with Skatopia?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And being in Ohio, like it's a
Place is gnarly, by the way.
Yeah, it is gnarly.
Okay,
Bruce is gnarly. The place is gnarly.
Yeah.
But it's a couple hour drive from me. And so like we would go up there occasionally for like different shows or bull bashes and because that's like the event that they'll have like a couple of different bull bashes every year, you know. And one year I went up there and I met a person up there and they were like, oh, like come to this thing in Maine. We'll like go work at, you know, harvesting, what was it, like harvesting fucking snails or something?
Snails?
Yeah, I think it was harvesting snails. So anyways, I go up there, but they don't ever arrive. And the people that I meet are like the people, I go to the place where they tell me to go, and the people they're like, oh, they're actually not harvesting snails. They're like this collective of artists, and they make these big giant posters like and sell them to raise money for like to raise awareness against like coal mining, you know, like just leveling mountains, you know, in West Virginia. And so I stayed there with these people and I camped out there for like a couple of days. And this was up in Maine, at the very top of Maine, like in it's called Machias, Maine. And she tells me, oh, there's like this guy that lives like a couple miles down the road, and like every year, like right around this time, he throws this party in the woods and he has like a ramp back there. And I'm like, this sounds crazy, you know? Like, she's like, well, I'm gonna give him a call and see if it's okay if we like take you over there. So she calls the dude up and he's like, yeah, bring him on over. So I get there and it's the Rob Stock.
Yeah, Whitneyville.
In Whitneyville. Yeah, Machias, Whitneyville. So I end up there, like just randomly. Like I had no idea that I was that close to it, you know. So this was like 2010. I went there and I like raged that ramp with all those guys. I met like people that I'm still in contact with like today, you know, people that come through and visit me, or they've this band, the Narcs from Rochester, New York. Like I have like some close friends now from Rochester that I met there, and then some other people from the East Coast, but it was pretty cool. And then from there I ended up flying to Oakland, and then I lived in Oakland for a bit of time.
Was that when you first went to California? Like, because you had this thing where you wanted to go to California. I was going to ask you, like,
well, I'd ran away. Well, I'd ran away from home when I was like 13, and me and my buddy like rode trains and would hitchhiked around the country. Like, I went to like New Orleans for Mardi Gras as like a young kid, and then ended up in like going. I went to Texas. We went to Austin. Like I was like a young kid and hung out on Guadalupe. Guadalupe.
Yeah.
like right there. I guess that's where the campus is. There's,
Yeah, I'm not overly familiar with Austin, but yeah, I know
Austin
the
was
river
cool.
is Guadalupe, and I think they say Guadalupe, but not Guadalupe. I could be wrong.
Yeah, Guadalupe, but there's a street there. It's like it's kind of like it would be like Broadway or something, you know. It's
Campus
like
is on the north side of town.
Yeah.
But whatever. Yeah. I know where the campus.
But yeah,
is.
but I went there. That's where I met Burnside Germ.
Oh wow.
He was like traveling too.
Yeah.
And I ended up running into him like that in that trip that I'm telling you guys about where I went to Maine. Like that same year, I ended up at the Burnside. I forget what year it was. It was maybe the 20th anniversary.
Okay.
The Burnside. I think it was 2010.
Okay.
I forget. Maybe it was the 15th. I don't know. It was one of those years. It was a Halloween at Burnside. That was like 2010. See, I guess I don't know. I feel like that should start at like the beginning of somewhere because there's like kind of like a long thing. So I'll continue on with like as a kid, like me and my friend who's now a truck driver in Ohio. We like both ran away from home and like traveled around the country for a couple, like from 13 to 15. And then I came back and I went to school for a little bit. And then my dad let me drop out when I was like 16. Like he just got tired of like the truant people coming because they were like harassing him. Like he was skipping, doing something wrong. And I was like, he's like, I dropped him off at school, man. Like,
yeah. What more do you want me to do?
He's like, I like watched him walk in the fucking door and like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what to do. You know what I mean? Like you're telling me he's not at school, but I like dropped him there and saw him go in the building. So I don't know, Finally, he was like, dude, just like, in my state, like if you were 16, I think you had to work like 20 hours a week or something and you could drop out of school. So I dropped out of school and me and my girlfriend got an apartment. And that was like 1996. Like I know what year stuff happened and like how old I was because my age always changes with the year. Because I was born in 1980, so in 81.
I have the same thing. Yeah. That's rad.
Yeah.
How'd you end up in the Pacific Northwest?
So when the very first time, like I was real into 151 skateboards, and I think I was watching their video a bunch. And
Up the dose. What is it? Oh, Too Loud for the Crowd.
Too Loud for the Crowd.
Yeah, the Eric Dressen part's amazing.
Yeah, and so I had a girlfriend who was like looking at colleges, and she was either going to go to school in Olympia at Evergreen.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, like I think I'm gonna move to Portland, or Oregon. Like I'm gonna go skate this place,
Yeah.
Like it's gonna be crazy. Mind you, I had never skated like a bowl before. Like transition to me was like mini ramp, we grew up with half pipe. So anyway, she picked that school in Forest Grove, and I rode a Greyhound bus out there and stayed in the dorm with these dudes at that school. And I'd ride the Max train all the way to Portland. It took like an hour and a half every time, and I'd go to Burnside and just like shortly like realized like Burnside's gnarly. I ended up just eventually getting an apartment in Portland, and then I would go there at night. I would skate with this deaf guy, Deaf Paul.
Oh wow.
And it'd be just me and Deaf Paul there late night, or like some other random dudes, but and I would go there during the day sometimes, but I never like got like good at skating it,
Were the sessions heavier during the day?
There were definitely, there's Burnside, it lights up during the day. And then I went back to Ohio and I traveled around a bunch, like from 18 to like 20. Well, I turned 21 in Portland. So from like 18, 19, 21, and then I ended up going back to Ohio and met another girl, and then ended up staying in Ohio until I think 2005. We had a kid in 2004, our first kid. She's going to college now. Actually, damn,
Crazy,
she's
yeah.
18 and going to college. So,
Yeah. I have an 18.
but so we, and then eventually we both moved to like Lake Stevens, Washington, because she had family out here. And then I stayed here till early 2007, and then went back to Ohio. You know, I had like some issues. Like we had both had like issues with addiction and stuff. So from like 2000 and be like 2007 to 2010, I stayed in between Ohio. I stayed in Ohio mostly, but then I ended up getting married, and that's a whole nother thing that
Yeah.
I moved back to Ohio and got married to some lady that I knew for like 3 months.
What?
And then
Yeah.
Green card
Yeah.
situation or what?
no, like so all right, so I had this like gnarly addiction problem that I was dealing with out here. I kept going to jail and getting in a lot of trouble, and just had a lot of like bad shit going on. And I got out of jail and like started going to the skate park down by the Space Needle, because I was
Yeah.
like, what do I do? You know? And so I just started, I had a skateboard. And so I started going to that skate park down by the Space Needle. And I was do that for like probably like 3 months. I met a bunch of people down there. And it was like the concrete one, you know, that was down there. It was before they moved it.
Like 2 C skates ago? Kind of?
Yeah. The one before the orange one.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
By the Key Arena one. Yeah. So
Yeah,
it was the
yeah.
gray one before that.
Yeah.
So I was going there a bunch, and then I realized like, man, I probably should like go home, you know, and like I didn't have any family here, like anything like that. I was basically by myself. And so I went back home, and like I went back to the spot where all my homies hang out and skate, which is this corner. It's called Wheeler. And like you would often see guys like James Couch up there skating, like,
Really?
and Alex Davis was another guy that used to be up there. Dave Cato, just like a bunch of dudes that I knew. So I went up there and like, oh, where's everybody at? You know, like, and they're like, oh, they're all down at this girl's house down the way. And so I'm like, cool. So I, you know, probably went and got like a 12-pack and showed up over there at this girl's house where everybody stayed and hung out. And then I was like, looked around. I was like, she had like animals everywhere. There was like rabbits and ferrets and like dogs and cats. And there was like just like animals everywhere. And she had like the sickest record collection. I was just like, this chick's cool, you know? So I like try to like court this girl. She doesn't really want anything to do with me. I don't know. She didn't want anything to do with me until like I got into like a altercation with her father, because he was like, there was like a random fight at their house between these people. And I don't know, they were just pouring liquor down my throat. And people knew that I had like a crazy drug problem, but they like it wasn't like, people weren't looking at me funny when I was clean from drugs or whatever. But then like they wouldn't look at you funny for drinking, you know what I mean? So you could like socially, it was like socially acceptable. And like people weren't like, oh my God, like look at, you know, like, so I was like, cool, I'm just drink all the time.
Yeah.
Listen out. and then like,
Uh-oh.
I woke up and was married to this girl who lived at the skate house
Yeah.
All right.
with all the animals. So now I've like
successful
acquired-
courtship.
Yeah.
yeah, it worked. It worked like, and it was cool, you know, like I was like in there until it like wasn't cool anymore,
Yeah.
you know, and then there were times where it like wasn't cool, you know, but at this time, like I was just trying to get back into skating. I was like I was like trying to figure out like what I did before I did the drugs and stuff, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would get into like, I would have these like these fights with my wife, and I would just go jump on an airplane to Oakland,
Oh,
you know, and I wouldn't tell her where I
Oh,
was just
wow.
like, I'd be like, oh, like
Yeah.
it would be like a mission too. It'd be like, all right, like I call people and they'd like covertly like get me out of town. Like I got people like waiting in the car around the corner, and I'd like
Yeah.
have my bags and I'd wait until she went to work, and then it'd be like this mission, you know, they'd get me at the airport, and I'd get out to Oakland, and then I'd be like out there for like months, you know, and then like I'd probably start talking to her again on the phone, and then be like, oh, I'm going to go back, you know, and I'd go back, and then be like, everything would be cool for a while. And then it would be like, you know, 6 months later, I'd be like doing the covert mission. And she
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm going to the store for some smokes. Yeah. So definitely did, you know, like back and forth with that. And then eventually in 2010, we kind of just ended the marriage. And that's when
Yeah.
I like did the whole trip well, I went to Skatopia, then to Maine, then to Robstock, and then ended up at the Burnside thing, where I went to the drunk tank the first night I got there and thought I don't drink anymore.
Yeah. I know. When we hung out last in Seattle, we talked about that.
I think the first time I met Ron, we were at a Northgate.
Okay, makes sense. Yeah.
And I don't know, like you know, when you see people skating and you're like something, you're just kind of like, oh, that dude's ripping. Like I like that dude's style, or what, you know, it was like one of those things. And then where I think we just end up talking or whatever. Like, I don't know. I'm just most comfortable talking to other skateboarders. So if I'm at the skate park, like I'll talk to the dude next to me, you know, and he, oh, you're from Ohio. I'm from Ohio.
That's right.
You know?
One's from Ohio. I forgot.
Yeah. And then so then it was like, okay, well,
We thought he was Canadian for so long. He said he was Canadian.
He was from all kinds.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh too, right?
He didn't tell us
from everywhere.
Yeah. He also never told us his last name for the longest time, so we just made it up. You know, he would come up with like, he was Ronnie Ramone.
Ronnie Ramone,
Ron Jeremy Rogers.
Ron Howard.
Ron Howard. Yeah.
Ron Wayne.
That's pretty good. Ron Jeremy Rogers.
Yeah. But
yeah. So
awesome, dude.
And then I didn't see him for like a long time. I think maybe he had like his like thing that happened.
Yeah. He had some cancer issues. Yeah, health issues.
And then I didn't see him for a long time. And then one day I was at Ravenna Curbs, and it was like, boom, there he was, you know, and it was like, bam. And then just from going there, you know, like you'll see the same people there. It's like the same dudes who like are probably feel, you know, like we're not trying to go to that park down the street. We want to go to this like curb that's under a bridge in some dark parking lot corner, you know, with a bunch of other.
It seemed to me, because like we used to skate there all the time, and there wasn't really like a big scene there. There was some stuff going on, but it seemed to me like from the outside looking in, back in Boston, it was like during COVID, it seemed like the Ravenna Curbs blew the fuck up.
Oh, they definitely did.
Everybody was going there.
Yeah. See, so here's a funny thing that happened during that whole like COVID thing is right before that happened, I started skating with these guys out at this other place out on the east side. And I'd get up every morning and I'd go skate with these guys. And one of the guys works at another shop over there. He's a good dude, Dave at 35th. And there's a couple other guys. they had their curb thing at their curb club called like Curb Ritual. There was a few of them. But I was like starting to go skate with those guys on Sunday mornings. I was super excited because I finally was like meeting other people in Seattle that were like curb skaters, you know? So
Yeah.
I'm like, I think I went for like 3 or 4 times, and then my work started making me work on Sundays, and then I was bummed, you know, and then I think I maybe like gave them an ultimatum, like, you guys gotta give me Sundays or like whatever, you know, and then so they gave me Sundays and I was happy, and then like bam, COVID happens, you know, and then they're like, everybody's like, oh, like we're not, you know, going out skating during COVID, you know. So that thing kind of fell apart, you know. I think I made it out there a couple of times on the bus or something, but then you're like riding the bus with like rubber gloves at this point. You got like a mask on. You're like, you might have a little shield over your face. You know, you're just like,
It's a lot.
If someone
spraying
coughs near
everything
you,
yeah, you're just spraying everything with sanitizer and just.
I feel like the transit or the Puget Sound transit system was not the most cleanliest place before COVID. Like riding the bus was not exactly like a clean experience to begin with. So I can only imagine like taking the bus out to Bellevue for an hour. You'd be like, you know.
Yeah, you're just people. If anybody makes the slightest cough, you're just, oh God, let me off this bus, you know. Like but then so the COVID thing happened, and then it was just like I had a parking block down the street from me, and that was like every day just the parking block, and the I noticed that the security guard didn't want to come kick me out anymore.
Yeah.
You know, the little parking block down the street, like he wasn't gonna come kick me out, so I just every day just back at that parking block, just what I'm gonna learn this today, and then eventually like people started kind of coming back out again at some point after it kind of died down. But for a big part of like the lockdown and quarantine was like me in a parking block, you know, and like with totally wearing gloves and in the elevator in my building with the mask on and a handkerchief tied around my face. You know, I'm not trying to touch anything, and I got the sanitizer coming out and going to that curb spot, the Ravenna spot. And then I started like I met a bunch more people like from that, you know. There's so many different island curbs there. Yeah, so that spot was there, and then I would like try to go out and find other spots too, you know, like I got real into like going out and like trying to find like dry curbs that I could slappy or like weird things that like maybe you could slappy, you know, like the little thing on the bottom of a bike rack, like figure that out, you know, like
that.
Just so like there's a weird rock like on the sidewalk, like I think I could slappy that, you know, and then I just figure out how to slappy it, you know, and like during those times, the early COVID too, there was a lot of protesting going on in Seattle around that time. So like there's like stuff that I was skating that like you couldn't go skate right now. Like you like security would be just like not.
Yeah, sure,
you know?
sure, yeah.
You know, like there like downtown was a free for all for like
crazy,
months.
dude. It was like it was completely empty, like completely empty.
I would be downtown trying to get a clip, and I could hear the right one on around like a block away. You know,
that's gnarly.
You know, and then I got footage where you can see like 40 bike cops, like just you know going just do, you know, and we're just out there like skating, filming, like haha, like whatever, you know.
Yeah. I remember that.
How did the whole curb critters thing like matriculate or materialize?
So like I said, like I started skating with those guys on Sundays, like, and I was pretty stoked. I wanted to start like kind of like a curb club thing, and I had this idea because there were these other curb pages that were on Instagram, and I noticed that like all these guys would always tag these other curb pages, but they really weren't like, it was just like some dudes, and they had their little curb club that they were like promoting, you know. but then like people, I guess maybe they'll want to be a part of it or like want them to share their video too. But it really wasn't that kind of thing. So then one day I just was like talking to my friend and I came up, I was throwing like names around and I was like, the first one was probably like something silly like Curb Wizards or, you know, something like that. It was like, and then like, I don't know what it was. I was just like, man, critters, like just the word critters, like cool, you know, like there's no
complements
definition.
curb skating perfectly, like a critter.
Yeah.
Like, the curbs, you know, like.
And there's no definition of what a critter is. It could be like any little rat, squirrel, weasel, like it could be a turtle, you know, just like whatever, like
That's sick.
it could be like a fictional little thing maybe from a movie. But I started like, I think I posted a couple of my friends' clips on there. And then like within like the first week, like I was getting like clip submissions from people wanting me to post their stuff. And it was like, the first one was like, where I was like, well, I'm kind of onto something. The guy was like from this weird part of Germany, like Flensburg, Germany or something.
Oh, sick.
And I was like, how did this guy find me? Like, I guess it was like hashtag or something probably now that I think back, but so, and then like, then it just kind of grew, it grew real quick. Like it was like 100 followers, you know, 200 followers, 300 followers. And then like, I was like, whoa, I'm onto something, you know? And then, but I was still just like me posting me and my friends' clips too, you know?
Yeah.
But also posting like people that would send in their clips. And like, if you're out there and like you have a clip of you doing your first slappy, like you want people to see it, like send it to Curb Critters. Like I'll post that.
Yeah, I love that.
That's
like
right.
you don't have to be like the master, you know, like whatever. Like it's just it's a network of people so that people can like, you know, but it didn't even start out like that. So it started out me posting me and my friends' clips on there. And then like I think I made these like stupid stickers that was like a collage, you know, with a little critter standing on a parking block. And I posted a photo of one and people were like, hey, can we buy those? You know, and then I was like, yeah, I guess, like, you know, or whatever. But I think I think then I was like sending them to people for free, basically, you know, just, I don't know, like, here, I'll just send you a couple, you know. And then, you know, it started growing more and more. And then before, like within a month or two, there was like 1,000 followers. And I was like, oh my God, I never dreamed, you know, and like people were just steadily sending their clips, you know, and I'm like, wow, like this thing's crazy, you know. And then people were like meeting each other, you know, and they're like the early on, like they were like, I've seen it happen. Like I would see like people kind of meet each other on there, and like people like went on to like do stuff for brands. Like a couple people definitely got sponsored from it.
Really? Wow.
So yeah, there were kids that like they found sponsors and vice versa, whether it was like a wax sponsor, like there were a couple of wheel companies that were messing around with the curb dudes to make there's a Boardy Cakes. They make the little skateboard wheels.
Sean,
35 millimeters, right?
Like 30, they make like 39, 38, some 40s.
Yeah.
40. I think their biggest wheels probably was like a 49.
Really?
I rode a couple sets, but I like a bigger wheel. I need at least a 54. 52
So wait a minute.
at the minimum.
So like dedicated curb skaters?
So there were
like raw with really tiny wheels?
the little tiny wheels with like the 215 trucks. There's like a certain sect of curb skater that loves that little tiny wheel. You know, they love
but with wide trucks.
because it's all truck, you know.
Oh,
think about how easy it is to,
like the
to
wheel.
slap.
You're almost taking the wheel out of the equation.
You know,
Slap that 215 right on there, you know?
Oh.
Yeah, just slap it right on there, and you know.
But
yeah, there's a whole sect of like curb skater that like they're riding like 39, 40 millimeter wheels with 215s. No rides or pads.
No rides or pads. Wow. That's crazy. Well,
you're not gonna get a wheel bite when you got.
That's right.
Yeah. The UK really for some reason that there's a generation of like people in the UK that like curbs and they like get it. I don't know. It speaks to them or something, you know, like really weird.
Well, they spell it
So
with a K,
then-
right? Don't they spell curb with a?
They spell curbs with a K a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of them do over
My
there.
parents are from England. Right? Yeah.
They spell curve.
But
Yes, they
But-
do. Yeah.
Huh.
but we got like support from like a shop over there, freestyle skate store. Like they wanted some
Wow.
shirts and like we worked out a deal where, you know, like basically I didn't have that many shirts and I knew that it was gonna like cost a lot to ship them over there. So
Yeah, yeah.
we just basically did a trust deal where I sent him the art over there and
Yeah.
then
Did a little
he
licensing
printed
deal.
up. Yeah, and then he printed up so many shirts, and then they had like they're the ones. The UK had like a yellow Curb Critters shirt that we didn't ever have in the United States. Like, so they that our shirt but in yellow, and then they had the gray as well. But so I sent him the art, and then he's like, you know, if you trust me to do this, and I was like, well, I don't really have anything to lose, you know. So, well, you know, I sent him the art. He made the shirts, and then like a few months later, like I, you know, would get a random PayPal from him, you know, for some money, you know, for shirts. So it was
Sick.
pretty cool. That helped out. That helped a lot. Like, you know, and basically my thinking was like, well, if these dudes like worst case scenario, these dudes are gonna make the shirts and not so many money, and then people are just gonna be walking around wearing my logo
Yeah.
in the UK, like whatever, you know.
Yeah.
I have seen some bootleg stickers out there, but
That's
it's cool. Yeah, I mean it's cool.
Hey, imitation's the highest
It
form
is
of
what it
flattery, you know?
Yeah, I'm just stoked that people like it and that the people still like they wake up every day and like they look for that post, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
They scroll, and there were times where I was like this before I had the logos and all that. I was like I got discouraged with it because of there were like some copycat accounts that popped up, and then like they were just like sucking followers from me, and then I wasn't getting as many submissions there for a while, and I was just like,
Oh, so
this
is
thing
that,
just
is
like
that why you stick the logo in the corner of the post or something? Is that sort of like help verify
that? Yeah, because like there were other accounts post something, and then like an hour or two later, it would be
Yeah.
on their page, you know, and I'd be like,
Oh, yeah.
people work
you know,
that
what's going on?
quickly?
That's a dirty feeling, right? That just feels
Yeah.
dirty. You're like, fuck, dude.
I did research too. Like before Curb Critters, there wasn't a Curb repost thing. There wasn't like a Curb submission page. It didn't exist, you know?
Yeah.
There's so
Like-
many now,
like,
too, dude.
there were
There's
curb
so many
pages.
curb pages.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like,
And that was how I came across you guys. Is so
Yeah.
I remember seeing like oh, these guys have merch, and I remember going over and like looking like there was like a bunch of different stickers that you could pick from that you guys had, and then I was like looking, I was like, dude, it looks like these guys are in Seattle, and somehow I never like I never crossed paths because like I said, like I was like dying to like meet other guys that were into skating curbs,
Yeah.
you know, but so I found the collision page, but it looked like it was just like merch at that point. Like there wasn't like, I don't know. I don't know.
the story behind that real quick is like our good buddy Court and myself, like I was in California and I came back to visit Seattle, and me and our friend Court got drunk one night, and I was on the fence about moving back to Seattle, and he was like, oh, I haven't skated since you left. I have been gone for like 2 years. And I was like, well, dude, if I come back, we're fucking starting a curb club. And like, I was like very adamant about, I'm like, we're getting, like, if I come back, it's only about skating. Just, we're skating. But we did have a band, but it was skateboarders in the band. So it was,
That's late. That was later though. That was
but
yeah.
the thing was, it was called Shop Deck. And then Ron got sick. And so I changed the name of my Instagram to Shop Deck Collision Crew because we were doing an event, a benefit for Ron. And I wanted to kind of like be able to use that as a way to promote that rather than just like my whatever random Instagram. And then meanwhile, Court, who's a graphic designer, he was kind of doing all this merch, sort of like, I don't want to say it is what it is, sort of like not like without my consent, but he's a graphic designer. So he just had these ideas and he was like making this merch. But I was kind of like trying to curate something with Collision Curb Club or just kind of trust my gut. And he and I didn't always have the best communication at times. And so the Collision Curb Club thing was rad and is rad and always will be rad. And like, I love it. But yeah, it was more like merchandise focused, whereas I was kind of wanted to post clips and not really have like a graphic design layout or like he was kind of doing like three things, like 1, 2, 3 makes a row, and then 1, 2, 3 makes a row. And so when you look at it, it's kind of like this. It was very graphic design based. So that's the story with that, if anyone was wondering, you know.
It was cool. But I noticed like people would at, you know, their curb thing, but it was like just their curb thing and they'd sold merch, you know. And I was like, man, like if there was like a plate, you know, like one of these repost pages for that, like these dudes would send me their clips and then I'll just post them, you know. And then these guys could just have their curb page, you know, and post their friends or whatever they wanted to do. And then so I just made the page and it's exceeded my expectations, you know.
Is it just you? Or do you have any help with it at this point, or are you still doing it all yourself?
I have people helping me. So like I said, I got discouraged with it at a point, and all I had at that time was a font. I made this font on like a program on my phone, and I have a button press, so I was making buttons and stickers.
Yeah.
And like I just had this font, and then like I was pretty discouraged with it. And then one day my friend was like, "Hey man, like I have this like I made some drawings for you. Like I hope you're not bummed at me. You know, if you hate them, like you don't have to use them or whatever." And I was like, it was like the round logo with the curb critters and the teeth, and I was like, "Oh my god! Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like this is the fucking sickest thing I've ever seen." And then he's like, "Oh, there's some other stuff in there, you know." And I was like, "Dude," I was like, "Oh my god, like I'm ready." Like I was like pretty much done with it. I was like, whatever, I'll let the other guys with, you know, the 20 other curb pages that popped up, you know, in the last week. Like I'll just let them have it, you know, because by this time, like the copycat pages are like, they got twice as many followers as me, you know, and I'm just like, how is this happening, you know? But I'm at the same time, I'm just happy to be right here. Like I'm stoked to have like at that point it was probably 2,500, you know, and I was just like, dude, this was cool. This is way more followers, you know, than I'll ever have. So I have my friend in Ohio. He does most of the artwork, or like all the artwork that we've had to date. My friend Mike Dye in Cincinnati, he's a tattooer and a skater, and just the dude that I always admired his skating and his art, and you know, he's just a rad dude.
And so you helped you with the zine, I think, right?
Yeah. He made the zine. Like he set up the email, and then I made the post about it on the Instagram page, and then when people sent their photos in and corresponded, they dealt with him. Like so like he spent his own money on that.
There's a Danny Sargent interview in the zine.
Yeah.
Are you guys buddies with him?
Interview.
Because he's got a funny Danny Sargent story. I don't know if he needs to tell it right now.
I mean, I'm in contact with Danny Sargent from time to time, and you know, definitely admire his skating, and it was cool he could come through for me with the interview. You know, I just texted him the questions, and he texted him back. And
I was in SF drinking in a bar, and my friend was wearing a Thrasher shirt, and Danny Sargent was there. And my buddy was like getting beers at the bar, and Sargent's like, "Oh shit, yeah, you're fucking skateboarders, like you're my people." So he just started hanging out with us. And then there was these two rad girls, and it was like, dude, Danny Sargent introduced everybody, and we were all hanging out and sitting there having drinks, and then he just like he vanished in smoke, dude. And then it was just me and my buddy and these two girls. So it was like Danny Sargent just kind of like blessed us with this amazing night. It was just like he like showed up, fucking, and I was like, dude, do you know who that is? Like I was like, this is Danny Sargent, you know, like kind of telling my friend, I was like, this is a trip. And then he was a rad dude, and then he just whatever, he got a phone call or something, and he took off, and then like we were there. And
Irish goodbye, right?
Yeah, it was super sick. It was kind of like a mystical moment of just stoke, you know.
Sick, yeah. But yeah, hopefully we'll get another issue going. Like at some point, I have another older curb guide that the people would be stoked to read. You know, have a little interview with. I think that people people would. At least the older guys, I think the younger guys, see, after we put that out, like, I had people coming up to me being like, hey, man, like, thing that he said about, like, frontside and backside slappies, like, I don't know, because, like, no slides and this and that. I'm like, like, I'm like, I had to, like, kind of break it down to him. Like, like, he's speaking from, like, a time period where people weren't doing no slides, and no slide didn't exist when Danny Sargent was like doing frontside and backside slappies.
Okay.
And so there's these younger guys, and they're like, but a crooked grind, what about a slappy crook? Are you saying that's not a slappy? I'm like, well, to some people, like maybe it, to people of that generation, like it's not a slappy. Like the slap part is like, when the back truck makes the noise. That's where I imagine the slappy comes into it. So guys of that era are going to look back and they're going to be like you're just like smashing your nose into the curb, and sliding or whatever. Like, so like, I don't know. It was interesting because I had this conversation a couple of different times, and I just had to explain to him, like, look, man, when this guy was skating curbs, like the most, like people, there wasn't no such thing as a slappy crook. There wasn't a slappy no slide. A slappy was a front side and backside 50.
How do you feel about it overall? Like, how do you, so you have the perspective of like the older generation, and now you're obviously immersed in curb culture or whatever. Like, how do you feel about, say, like a slappy 5.0? Is that such a thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's a thing. There's a way that people would do it. Like, there's the people who kind of will kick turn, with their back truck, like you would kind of do up onto like a coping, like kind of kick turn onto it. And a slappy purist is going to say, well, your front truck didn't, hit the curb first,
But it's a 5.0.
But to me, like as a kid, like any way you could get on a curb without hauling onto it, like it was a slappy. I grew up with like doing slappy no slides, like, and that's what I called it, was a slappy no slide, because I didn't ollie into it. I just smashed my nose into the curb and slid, But I know where
at nose slide, so that was just a nose slide to me. I was like, I wasn't fucking ollieing onto a ledge. I was like, that was how I did my nose slides on curbs. So
yeah, just on a curb. Yeah, that was ledge skating. Really, probably. I don't even know what year ledge skating like real like. I remember there was a certain point where it was like we didn't skate curbs anymore, and like, these tricks aren't cool, and that was a big thing too. Is like through like the late '80s or the late '90s, like '99. From 99 to like 2006 or 7, I would have these little kids skate up to me at the park and be like, hey man, I just seen you do like a boneless. Like, are you old school? Like you're an old school skater, old school. And I would always get called an old school skater because I would do, tail blocks and grab my board and do bonelesses and stuff. But it stopped happening. People were riding shape boards again, and like the welcome thing happened, and people were doing early grabs, and then like the inverts came back, and like everything, like there was no school on skating anymore. Like if you look in the right place, you'll see people doing freestyle. You know what I mean? Like in the early '90s, it was like street, and that was it. Like up to a certain point, I feel like like 92, 93 on, you would maybe see a vert ramp part, 411 video magazine that you'd watch or whatever. But there wasn't a lot of it. There was an era of like me getting skated up to at the skate park or wherever I was at, and have like the young kids be like, oh, you're old school, When the Plan B video came out, people weren't really doing slappies, even though there was like one slappy in the questionable video, one or two, I think. Pat Duffy did that big handrail. I think he board slid this giant handrail, and then there's a yellow curb in the parking lot. He like does a slappy 50-50 on it. That stood out to me. But like, yeah, it was like before I could learn that stuff, it wasn't cool anymore. So like I was like trying pressure flips or whatever it was, varial kick flips and pressure flips. And for a big part of my skateboarding was just me just like trying to flip my board around, and not doing anything. Like there was years where I probably didn't progress at all. It was just me like standing, barely rolling, trying to flip my board around, not landing anything. And I probably didn't land I probably knew how to flip a kickflip, but couldn't land on it for like 2 or 3 years, But, I wouldn't spend like hours trying them. I would try 1 or 2 here or there and then move on to the next thing.
The slappy's always had its place in skating, but it was like on the East Coast, you would only really see older dudes that kind of like almost didn't skate anymore or something do slappies. And it was like, because like Love Park and ledge skating was like such a big deal, not necessarily influential to me, but influential in my time and place in skating. So like when I got to Seattle and I saw all these shape boards and slappies and shit, I was like, and younger kids doing backside bonelesses and shit, it was like, this is a whole sort of resurgence, and it always had a distinctly Northwest feel to me for whatever reason.
Yeah. Seattle's like, I feel like the skate scene here is like probably one of the coolest, it's just so big that you could be a skateboarder. Like we lived in this city for a certain time together, and somehow we didn't cross paths. And there's that many skateboarders to where I'll see a dude at the park and I won't see him again for 2 or 3 years, but he's like out skating just like somewhere else.
Yeah.
And there's like that much skateboarding to where like you'll see people and then you won't see them again for a long time. It's not like they're not out there skating. They're out there, they're just over in West Seattle or something, and I stay over in Capitol Hill or, whatever neighborhood I'm in, it's like, it's real interesting like that. Like, I feel like you guys would probably spend a lot of time in Ballard, and like, I didn't really go to Ballard a whole lot.
It's like geographical and traffic based too. Like it wasn't like I was like, I guess like whatever. I don't want to bum anyone from Seattle out like and claim something, but I guess I have more like North Seattle pride. But that's just where I spent my time because of like the traffic. It's like, fuck, I'd love to go skate Delridge, but it's gonna take me an hour and a half to get there. So I was like, I'll just stick around and go skate what we got over here. And we were lucky because I don't know if you probably do, the Collision auto body shop across the street from the Tin Hat was like covered. So when it rains, you could skate there. And it was across the street from our favorite bar. And we all kind of lived in that neighborhood. So it just worked out pretty good.
In Cincinnati, there's like in the city, there's like some cool neighborhoods, there's a few cool neighborhoods, but there's like 2 kind of cool neighborhoods. And I feel like like Fremont's cool, like First Hill's cool, Capitol Hill's cool, like all these like the U District is cool, like all these neighborhoods and like little areas have their own like little charm, and you just, I don't know, everywhere I live, I like fall in love with that area, I'm just like, oh, now I live over by Gasworks Park, so I'm like in between that and the Wall of Death, and I'm just like, and now I have like all these other skate spots that like I'll be at, and I won't be over there, So the people that I seen when I was over there, I won't see as often, but now I'm gonna see these guys more, and it's just like, I don't know, it's cool. And then the whole thing with the curb, like now I live closer to the curbs, so
Yeah.
and that's a whole another thing. Like there's like different groups of dudes, people will just come through, you know. It's just sick.